Despite this ribbing, Paulie valued Carmine. His father, uncle, cousins, and grandfathers had worked in the Matatoio, the great slaughterhouse of Rome's Testaccio district, so Carmine possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of organ meats. Nobody else knew more recipes for oxtail and knucklebone or ways to salvage week-old liver. His kindness and tact won the hearts of poor pensioners and struggling young housewives. Even when coated with gore, his hands were as delicate as a jeweler's. "Will it be, Mrs. D?" he asked one day. "Trippa," Mama announced. "Trip," I said. "We going somewhere?" The other customers laughed. From the case, Carmine removed something about the size, shape, and texture of a deflated soccer ball and placed it on the scale. When the gelatinous mass quivered, I grimaced. "Cow guts," Carmine explained. Smiling bleakly, he slid open the bladder with a small paring knife and motioned me closer. The inside smelled worse than old sneakers, but was delicately brocaded as Mama's wedding dress. Carmine invited me to stroke it. "See," he said, "that's all we are, kids. That's all God is. We're born between piss and shit." Later, when I learned Latin in Christian Brothers Academy, I would realize he'd quoted St. Augustine, "Inter facies et uranum nascimur." We're born between feces and urine, and yet with an immortal soul. But for now, I was struck by the awe and irony in his voice. What was this stuff, I wondered? "Go peddle your tripe," growled Paulie. And then I talk a little bit about where tripe comes from. The great slaughterhouse in Rome, which in the interior foreshadowed the Ford Rouge plant in Dearborn, Michigan. Its exterior resembled a Roman temple, complete with a marble pediment and pilaster. Chiseled over the entrance are these words, "Stabilimento di Matazione," a grandiloquent way of saying shambles. Dr. Johnson would have gnashed his teeth. One can only imagine his reaction to the pagan statuary. A muscular chair bristles to the ground, a curved horned steer, an allusion to Mithras slaying the sacred bull. When the Persian sun god's cult flourished on the seven hills, priests would sprinkle the faithful with bull's blood. Likewise, the peasants who submitted themselves to the Matatoya's bloody baptism were reborn as Rome's proletariat. Most were grateful. Despite often brutal conditions, the factory offered steady work. At its zenith, the Matatoya employed thousands of bacchanari, cowhands, skinners, and butchers who came to live nearby. As part of their pay, or as an occasional bonus, these humble workers received portions of the cattle's quinto quarto, or fifth quarter. Roman butchers would quarter cattle into various valuable cuts. The fifth quarter is an elegant euphemism for entrails and Cinderella meats, ears, cheeks, dewlaps, testicles, hocks, hooves. By recuperating every edible part of a carcass, these butchers observed not only economic thrift, but religious scruple. Mindful they worked in the shadow of the Cupolone, that is the great dome of St. Peter's, they knew their secret duty was feeding the poor who rarely ate meat more than once a week. If God himself did not stint when sacrificing his only son, neither would they. This reverent practice created the Testaccio's unique cuisine, in which liver, heart, tripe, tongue, intestines, glands, and oxtails are turned into appetizing dishes out of sheer necessity or daredevil inspiration. Mrs. Petrosky, my former landlady, would have called such fare Goyische Essen. Quinto quarto cooking definitely smacks of the desperate and blasphemous, but that should be expected. Rome's poor, after all, claim descent from the wolfish Remus, who profaned the rites of Pan by gobbling sacrificial goats' hissing entrails as they roasted on the altar. Everybody from that district, no matter how hard they go in life, still eats that food, including great cardinals of the churches. And a lot of bishops and cardinals will go to the reason and take off their clothes, even dress as simple priests, or maybe even dress in their little guinea tees and just go, pretend that they're citizens. And one of them is a really fine cardinal who takes care of most of the poor hospitals in Rome, and that has earned him the affectionate but also obnoxious nickname Cardinale Padelle, Cardinal Bedpan. But everybody loves him because he's a real servant of the church. He has no heirs, and he doesn't forget that he comes from the Testaccio region. So he always goes and eats here. And here he is with the seminarian. And this is a meal that I had witnessed. As dinner was served, the cardinal ate his tripa alla romana with gusto, while the secretary sullenly picked at his food. When the cardinal noticed, the shamefaced young priest confessed he had succumbed to the sin of pride, for he considered undignified for his eminence to eat tripe like a common laborer. Cardinal Angelini kindly smiled and swirled his frascati. Rather than reprove his secretary, the cardinal invited him to practice exegesis. As with sacred scripture explained, diners should not limit themselves to tripe's literal meaning, they also should seek its moral, allegorical, and agogical meaning. Might we not, for example, consider a tripe a symbol of the human soul? After all, the Church teaches that the soul embraces our corporeal and spiritual totality. Thomas Aquinas, in fact, calls the soul the form of the body, the vital power animating, pervading, and shaping us from conception to death. Very Aristotelian, but then the angelic doctor was as fat as an ox. And what of Maximus the Confessor, who compared the soul to a membrane, the boundary between heaven and earth, the material and spiritual, much like tripe stands between digestion and excretion? Foraging on creation, the incarnated soul ingests sensation and experience, converts them to thought and desire, and nourishes both natural talent and supernatural longing. But what is it shit, Eminenza, an eavesdropping toddler asked. Theology, said the communist maitre d', and the restaurant exploded in laughter.
So we've come up to the end of our program tonight. I want to remind people that our wait staff is Natalia and Lily. And as many of you know, the management at Cornelia Street after 20 years has curtailed our schedule so that we no longer appear here every month, but every other month. Noi italiani siamo duri. We didn't just give up, and we found another place another venue that we think is very good, and so the premiere will be next month, and it'll be the second Saturday of the month. The time will be a little different. It'll be 5:30 to 7:30. Everything else will be the same. It's called the Sidewalk Cafe. It's at 94 Avenue A and 6th Street. They have a really great room that's separate from the dining area. So I'm really asking that people come to our premiere. Frank Lentrichia, the noted scholar and fine writer, will be featuring as well as myself. And so we're really calling on people to support us. And so this way, what could have been an unfortunate development will be a good development in that we'll have an Iowa West and an Iowa East. So to sum up tonight, I'd like to suggest that we give a warm round of applause to all the fine open readers, to our fine features. For those of you that are interested in receiving our newsletter, all you have to do is Google iowa.net, and those who are interested in joining can just click on to the Join Iowa on the left of our website. So look forward to seeing everybody next month. Arrivederci.